Need I say more? Live After Death, Iron Maiden. I remember when I first got this, I didn't have a record player that was working, so I would go into my brother's room and I would play this vinyl top to bottom over and over and over again. I mean, come on. The great thing about vinyl, I mean, look at this. I mean, come on. You don't get that out of a CD. You definitely don't get this on Spotify. It's hard for me to say that these are better than the studio versions. But Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner might stand up there. I mean, when they kick back in on this, I mean, it is crazy. It's so explosive. Literally, explosions go off. I'm looking at this. Aces High, 2 Minutes to Midnight, The Trooper, Revelations, Flight of Icarus is amazing on this album. But I love Side 4, which was recorded at a different venue. And Phantom of the Opera on here, far surpasses the original. What can you say about this? One of my favorite live albums of all time. No list of live albums would be complete in my book without Randy Rhoads and Ozzy tribute. You know, the big song that was released, Crazy Train, and I know that just for me and thousands upon thousands of guitar players, that's the version. I mean, how he rips that solo right off the jump. And I just remember, of course, John Lennon was before him, and then, of course, Eddie and Neil Peart and all these people that have gone before. But the first one I remember as a kid in the 80s, a child of the 80s, is Randy passing in the plane accident. And just what an amazing tribute to one of the most influential, killer, humble guitar players that ever walked the face of the planet. Need I say more? Rush, Exit Stage Left. A seminal live album. The one thing that kills me, though, I remember growing up seeing the video live from Montreal on MTV, and they centered out certain songs off of this release, Red Barchetta and Tom Sawyer, and also Spirit of the Radio. So you saw these on MTV, but you also saw Limelight from this concert. I have no idea why it did not end up on this release. But never fear, if you go to any streaming service, you'll find the Moving Pictures Super Deluxe box set, and it has an entire show from Toronto recorded on the same tour, and it does have Limelight. It has the entire show, which this just does not. They didn't have. I mean, it's a double album already, and they just didn't have enough wax unless it was going to be 3 or 4 discs. So, amazing album. Okay, now this one does not need introduction. Judas Priest, Unleashed in the East. I mean, we've got Exciter, Running Wild, Tyrant, Victim of Changes. Come on, people. The Green Manalishi with a 2-pronged crown. I remember getting this album and I wore this thing out. It's amazing. I mean, the cover shot, come on. My favorite Priest recording, which I could say is a live album, it came out on the 30th anniversary of Defenders of the Faith, and it's just included in the package, but it's Judas Priest live at Long Beach Arena on the Defenders of the Faith tour. My childhood is wrapped up in that concert. I had seen them, my first concert, in April of that year, and this was recorded on May 5th. It was actually my brother's birthday. I recorded it on his cassette recorder in his bedroom at the time. It captures exactly what I remember about the concert I saw, and it's raw. There is no overdubs. There's miscues on the delay on Rob Halford's vocals. It is raw and as it happened. This next album I had on cassette. It's none other than Scorpions Worldwide Live. That was my Klaus Meine impression. That sucked. But the album does not. I love this album so much. It's one of those things that takes me back to learning drums for some reason. I played to all these albums, classic albums, as I was a young drummer, and then later as a guitarist. Amazing tunes from top to bottom. The performances are legendary with a legendary band. I love all kinds of music, and this next one, I learned to play drums with a track on this album, Lovin', Touchin', Squeezin', obviously by Journey. Journey Captured. This was released in 1981, and it was right before Greg Raleigh left. That's him smiling all crazy. This album is actually takes me right back to my childhood. Line of Fire, Where Were You? They had a song on here called Dixie Highway that you could only get on here, and it also had The Party's Over Until the Greatest Hits album came out. This is the only place you could get it. It was like their studio track added on to add value. This one came with a poster, and I just poured over it. I put the poster up on the wall along with my Kiss posters, Judas Priest. I liked everything back then. It's just whatever I got my hands on that I liked. So sue me. Next, I want to highlight some Led Zeppelin. Led Zeppelin, I mean, this is the live album they put out. It was actually 76. It was recorded in 73, I believe, but they weren't happy with it, so it remained on the shelf. And it's kind of here and there. Rain Song on this is definitive. No Quarter is great. My favorite, though, is How the West Was Won. It was released in the 2000s. Jimmy Page's guitar sound on that thing, they remixed it, and it is amazing from top to bottom. It is Zeppelin and Robert Plant in particular at their very best. My Rock and Roll Bible. I remember sitting outside visiting my cousin, and outside his window, he was playing Kiss Alive, and it was 100,000 Years, and the drum solo, Peter Criss's drum solo, that made me want to be a drummer. I can't stress that enough. And later on, I just wanted to be Ace, because the first album I actually had on my own was Ace Frehley's solo album. I poured over even little things like Kiss uses Gibson guitars and Pearl drums because they want the best. It's right there. It's right there. The back cover is amazing. These kids were just holding a sign, and the photographer of this picture, which is amazing, saw them carrying the sign and took a picture of them. They didn't even know. I've seen interviews with them. They didn't even know that they were going to be on the album. They didn't tell them until they picked this up at the record shop in their hometown. Can you imagine? That's a fan's dream. This is one of the seminal record covers of all time. Even though it's staged, it was actually shot at the Michigan Palace. That's now a parking lot. But Ace is like holding his guitar like all crazy, and but for the atmosphere that this does is amazing. The one strike I have against this album is the really dumb letters that they put in. As a kid, though, it was amazing. It kind of set them apart as different characters: the Spaceman, the Catman, the Demon, and the Star Child. One of my favorite albums of all time. And again, my rock and roll Bible. I learned to be able to play lead solos, and they aren't that hard. Some of them are kind of challenging for a kid, but to be able to really set and listen to these songs, and it was accessible for a young person wanting to start out in rock music, this is it. And now, this is my favorite live album of all time, Kiss Alive 2. Don't hold it against me. Kiss Alive is amazing, but this one was when they were at their peak. Detroit Rock City, Calling Dr. Love, Shock Me, Ace's lead vocal song. I know that they got the idea from a ZZ Top live album to do, because they wanted to make it seem like it was a whole show, but they were only going to do the songs off of Destroyer, Rock and Roll Over, and Love Gun, and so they weren't going to do a complete show on here. So they added a fourth side of studio cuts. The studio side, I love. Larger Than Life has one of the best Kiss drum sounds up until basically when they get to Creatures of the Night with Eric Carr. It has a bunch of room. Same with Rocket Ride, another Ace song. Has an amazing drum sound. All the reverb, natural room reverb. But this thing, again, come on. This is, at the time, I mean, that's every parent's nightmare in the 70s. It includes the single most badass gatefold of all time. You ready? If you haven't never seen this, kids, here you go. The hottest band in the world, Kiss! If you don't think that is the most awesome cover photo inlay ever, I can't help you. they did cheat. Now, this was basically they fired off everything they had. You would see all these explosions, but you would see them throughout a show. They just shot off everything they had. But this is still just amazing. I mean, come on. Kiss Alive 2, my favorite live album of all time. Now I've got to know, what's your favorite? You've seen mine, and this is not an exhaustive list. So in the comments, just nail me with your favorite live albums, and I'll be sure to take a sample of all of them that I can. And I know that I've missed so many, but there's only so much time in a day, right? So again, these have been my favorite live albums, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Love you guys. I'll see you soon.